Hi everyone, in today's video I am going to show you how to sublimate a tumbler with no ghosting and a perfect seam. So let's get started. Okay, so I've already printed out the design that I'm going to use, and I elected to use a darker design. That way you can see that you're still going to get a nice looking tumbler with no ghosting and a perfect seam. I read a lot about people having trouble with like darker colored tumblers. So it's not going to matter if what kind of your design is, if it's light, dark, or black. You're still going to have a nice looking tumbler with a perfect seam. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So this size here is 9.3 by 8.2. I printed this out on my Epson F170 printer. I like that printer because I get the truest colors. So I'm going to go ahead and trim this down. Just trim off the white part as close to the edges as I can. And I use this Carl rotary trimmer. I just love this trimmer. I mean, it makes trimming so easy, and you can cut like just tiny little slivers. It's very accurate. So I'm going to go ahead and just trim this down. Just like this. Just all I did was cut off the white paper around the edges. Now what I do next is I make sure that the design is going to fit the tumbler. Now I do print it just a little bigger because I want to overlap about a 1/16, or no, probably about 1/8 of an inch. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I'd like to have around 1/8 of an inch overlap. So obviously you're going to turn it. I turn my tumblers upside down like this. Remember to turn your image upside down. A few times I've forgotten, right? Yep. So it happens every now and then. I get in a hurry. Everybody's probably done it. But turn your tumbler upside down, your image upside down, and then I just kind of wrap it around just to make sure I don't have too much overlap. And like I said, that's about 1/8 of an inch. But you can see it's just a little too long right here. I like to come up to like just before it curves around the bottom of the tumbler. So I'm going to just trim off just a little bit. And like I said, this trimmer will trim thinly and accurately. I'm just going to trim off probably about 1/8 of an inch. I mean, that's how thin it can trim. Okay, so let's try this. Now that is just perfect. See that on the camera? Mm-hmm. It's not going around the edge, and it's stopping right there before the curve. Mm. Okay, so once I have this sized properly, the next thing I want to do is put some tape on the edge, the edge that's going to be on the tumbler. For me, that is on the right side. On dark tumblers, you don't notice it as much, but when you have an 1/8 of an inch overlap, the ink will bleed from the top overlap through the bottom overlap, and you'll see like a little seam where the ink is bleeded through. To prevent that, what we do is we take some tape and run it down the edge of the design. So if this was a light colored design, you would really notice a big difference. But the dark colored designs, you don't really notice a big difference. But I just want to show you how I do this anyway. So you want it just up to the edge of the paper, just like this.
Or the tape is not going to get.
It's not going to touch the tumbler, mm-hmm. But you want it on here so that when the top layer is over this, when the other side of the paper wraps around, it's over, the ink doesn't bleed through the paper to the bottom layer, and then you'll have that like blurry looking overlap. I'm going to take this knife and I'm just going to cut this Need a sharper knife. I gotta order some new blades. But just cut this like that. Now, when I put this on here, upside down, because my tumbler is upside down, and I wrap this around, I have this tape on this side, so when I overlap it with this side, it doesn't bleed through this bottom edge right here. So there's one secret, okay? Now I'm going to show you how to tape this. I usually just hold it like this. I use this dispenser right here and I start in the middle. Just half and half. Squeeze it nice and tight and push it around. Tape it. Get another piece. Not a big long piece like that. Sometimes this doesn't cut like it's supposed to. Like this, and I go up close to the top. Squeeze it around. Hold it down like that. Then at the bottom, same way. Doesn't have to be perfectly half and half, but so that's how we start. Then I'm going to use my tumbler stand that I made, and this is nice for taping tumblers. It holds them in place. It doesn't let them roll around. And I actually sell these on my Etsy store, so this is something that you would be interested in. I'll put the link to my Etsy store on here, and you can purchase one from me. And
can you have your own logo or whatever?
yeah, I can put your own logo on there. It's free. It's for free. It's free personalization. But anyway, so this makes it a lot easier for me to put this on here. It doesn't roll away. Then I'm going to take a piece of tape and I'm going to run it half and half over that seam where the paper meets. And then I just cut a little bit so it's around the bottom, just like that. I kind of pull it tight and I just run my thumb down it like this and fold it over at the top. So I fold it over at the bottom and I fold it over at the top and just kind of smooth it out. Now take your thumbnail and just kind of go down this seam right here, just like this. Now if you don't have a thumbnail, sometimes my thumbnail breaks. I use a cap off of, I use this cap off of that X-Acto knife, and I just use the corner of it. I just run it down like this. I mean, you can use anything you want really, but the idea is to just kind of like get this smoothed out. Then I turn the tumbler around. Now you're going to have another seam line, which is the paper underneath that you can't see. So we're going to find the edge of that, and it's right there. See that? I don't know if you can see it on the camera or not, but I found the edge of the other seam right there. Then you're going to run your thumbnail or your plastic lid or whatever you're using to kind of get that pressed up against the tumbler. Just like that. And if you don't have a thumbnail, you can just use something like this. And now, I don't know if you can see it or not, you should see a seam about 1/8 of an inch. I try not to go much bigger than that, you know. You can go a little smaller if you want to. I don't know if you can really see it or not. But there is a seam down there about 1/8 of an inch wide, maybe a little bigger. So we've already smoothed out both sides. Now I'm going to tape the bottom. So I set it on here like this. I get my tape and I place it on here at half and half. So it's half on the paper, half off. And then I just wrap it around just like this. It doesn't have to be perfect. Once I get back to the seam, I just drop down and I do another wrap around. Like that until I get back to the seam, and then I cut it. Then I smooth it out. I fold over the bottom like this. And then I just take it on a flat surface, and then I just kind of help smooth it out a little bit by rolling it around. That way you have the bottom taped, just like this. Now we're going to do the top. Same process. Place the seam up facing towards you. And then start half and half, like that. Like I said, don't have to be perfectly half and half, as long as you've got some to fold over. Once you get back, drop down, and then go around again until you get back to the seam. Cut it off, kind of smooth it out like this, fold it over, and then you can smooth it out again on a flat surface like that. So here's what it looks like taped. Like I said, we have both sides of our seam, and you can actually see the seam line right there. You should be able to see both sides. We've done the bottom, we've done the top. Now, what we need to do is shrink wrap this. Now, I've read a lot of people don't shrink wrap, and I do. I just don't want to take that chance.
We've tried not doing it, and we don't like the outcome.
Yeah, I think I tried without shrink wrap, and sometimes the paper, when you tape it, doesn't get tight enough, so you might have a little bit of space between the paper and the tumbler, and it ghosts. I mean, it's not bad, but you can still kind of tell there's a little bit lighter on the design. So I do use shrink wrap. I mean, it doesn't cost that much, and it's not that hard to put on there. And I just put that on there like this. I get a heat gun, which is way over here for some reason. And you don't want to get too close, just kind of stay about 6 inches away. And just start putting your shrink wrap, heating it up with the ends, and then just go over it a little bit and get some wrinkles out of it. If you get too close, you're going to melt it. Let's go around a little bit, just make sure I got it. Just like this. Okay, so now we are ready to put that in the convection oven. Now, if you're using a tumbler press, you can still tape it the same way I just showed you. Just don't use the shrink wrap. But you can tape it and put it in your tumbler press, just like I showed you how to tape it. Okay, so we use this KitchenAid convection oven. When we first got this, and I had made a video about a year and a half ago, we were using 350 for 5.5 minutes.
Push it again.
But in the last few months, or maybe about 6 months ago, we noticed that we were getting ghosting and seam lines. And it was because we'd made over 1,000 tumblers in this, and I think it lost some of its heat capabilities. So we increased it to 380 for 7.5 minutes is what we bake our tumblers at now, and they just come out perfect. Now every convection oven is going to be different. So yours, you may not, 380 at 7.5 may be too much. Or you might do 370 at 6. I mean, it's something that you have to experiment with, depending on what type of convection oven or air fryer or whatever you're using. But after several tries, and you will waste a few tumblers, we found that 380 for 7.5 minutes is perfect for us. So just because that's the temperature I'm using doesn't mean that that's going to work for you and your convection oven. Okay, so when this heats up, we'll put our tumbler in there and we'll continue from there. Okay, so like I said, we set our oven to 380 and we bake our tumblers for 7.5 minutes. So I can't really set this to 7.5, so I wait till it gets close to 7.5. And then I put my tumbler sideways in the middle of the oven because they're too tall to stand like this. So we're gonna go ahead and put this in there, and I'm gonna turn it halfway at 3 minutes and 15 seconds. So we'll go ahead and pick it up from there. Okay, so I said earlier 3 minutes and 15 seconds, but I made a mistake. It's actually 3 minutes and 45 seconds, which is halfway for us on our 7.5 minutes. So we're getting close to halfway, and I'm going to go ahead and turn this. You can see my heat shrink wrap has melted just a little, and we're going to go ahead and let this finish, and we'll continue from there. All right, we're almost down to 7.5 minutes, and we'll go ahead and shut it off. Take it out of here, and what I do is I take this and submerge it in room temperature water. So I'll be right back. Okay, so here is our tumbler. It did, the shrink wrap did melt a little bit right here. And we used to have some really good shrink wrap, but unfortunately the company that sells it doesn't sell it anymore. So now I'm dealing with this shrink wrap that sometimes melts and sometimes doesn't. So if you have any suggestions on shrink wrap that doesn't melt, I'd greatly appreciate it. But when they get done in the convection oven, I do submerge our tumblers in room temperature water. I've done that for over 1,000 tumblers, maybe 2,000, and I've never had one crack or break or leak. Just don't submerge them in ice cold water. Then you have that chance of the losing the vacuum seal or cracking on the inside. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this shrink wrap, and we'll continue from there.
And at the end of the shrink wrap.
All right, I got the shrink wrap off. And we're going to remove the sublimation heat tape. The way I wrap these, I know exactly how to unwrap them. Like this, and then you reach inside. You just pull that down like that. Then we'll take a look at the results here. So there's paper stuck up there and down here, so I'm going to get a wet rag and I'm going to wipe that off. So you will get a little bit of paper that sticks to your tumbler, and all you have to do is take a wet rag and just kind of go over the tumbler, and we'll see how this looks. Go ahead and dry it off. It doesn't hurt to wipe off the paper with a wet rag. So let's take a look here. Here's the top. There's absolutely no ghosting along the top. That's clouds right there. Here's the bottom. And here's our seam line. Look how clean and sharp that is. Nice, clean, sharp seam line. You don't have any bleed through on the seam line. And it's perfect every time using this method. I'll show you the last one I did, just so you know it's not. And here's the last one I made. Same results. No ghosting. Perfect seam line. Works every time. So hopefully this video will help you with your tumbler sublimation, and that you have learned something, and you no longer will have ghosting and some nice seam lines. If you have any questions or comments, please comment in the comment section, like, subscribe, and I have plenty of other videos. If you like this one, you may like another one that I've made, and hopefully your tumblers will look great from now on. Have a nice day. Thanks.